as you surely know by now, bombs are raining down in the Middle East after the US and Israel struck over the weekend, firing barrages of missiles into Iran and killing that nation's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Iran has responded by attacking US bases in the region, also attacking Israel. A new salvo launched just an hour or so ago. Since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, that country's been run by a brutal theocratic regime. It has repressed its citizens' rights. It has killed thousands of Iranians. Many Iranians are celebrating the Ayatollah's death, but the US and Israel's attack was made without congressional approval. It is widely seen as an illegal act of aggression against another sovereign nation, and one which has further destabilized an already volatile part of the world. Donald Trump, the American president, is urging Iranians to stand up and seize control. But which Iranians? Who would form the government? What shape would that government take? And what of those still loyal to the current regime, which for the time does still hold the monopoly on state force in that country? Well, joining me, to discuss all of this is the geopolitical analyst, Dr. Geoffrey Miller. Geoffrey, kia ora to you. Thanks for your time tonight.
Good evening, Emile.
So, how did you find out about this?
Well, look, it's just over 48 hours since this all began. It was Saturday evening, New Zealand time. I was watching the rugby, like many people do, on a Saturday night, and my phone began to blow up with notifications just after, I think, 20 past 7 in the evening. So it all just has spiraled out of control since then. I'm reminded of that old quote by Vladimir Lenin: there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Well, it's only been 48 hours, but an awful lot has happened over the past 2 days, and it's just been quite dramatic. I mean, that word unprecedented is used a lot in geopolitics, but I think it really does apply here to what we're seeing, just how this war has got so bad so quickly, and how quickly it has gone regional, how it has spread to the Gulf states and beyond. All 6 of the Gulf states, that's Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, have been targeted by Iran in its retaliatory attacks. Then you have to add Jordan, Iraq, and of course Israel itself. Then you add Cyprus, British base there was attacked. And we're just at the beginning, I fear, in terms of this unfolding new war in the Middle East. It's quite terrifying.
So if we look at what we know at the moment, and there is much that we don't know, but as you understand it, what is the state of play at the moment?
Well, chaos and destruction across the Middle East is the really how we can sum it up best. Just the lines keep coming out. There's smoke rising from the US Embassy compound in Kuwait just in the past hour. That's been reported by an AFP correspondent. You have a Saudi Aramco oil facility in Ras Tanura, that's on the very eastern coast of Saudi Arabia, where their main oil production facilities are located. That's been attacked. Saudi Arabia is the world's biggest oil exporter, and that will have a direct ramification on oil prices. In fact, it already has. I was just checking the oil price. It was going up as I was watching it, and oil has gone up almost 10%. And oil had already gone up by 20% this year. The markets had priced in to some degree the risk of an attack because this had been well signaled. We've all followed this US Armada, as Donald Trump has called it, off the coast of Iran in the Arabian Sea. And so the markets had priced that in. But even so, they've been stunned. The markets have been stunned by just the scale of the destruction that we've seen here, the scale of the US and Israeli strike, and the ability of Iran to fight back. Now, we shouldn't be surprised because we got a taste of this last June during the 12-day war, that Iran's capabilities were actually a lot better than many liked to think beforehand, particularly from the Israeli side. Israel suffered quite a lot of damage from Iran's ballistic missiles and drones during that 12-day war, and Iran is showing that despite these massive strikes by the United States and Israel, it is able to fight back and fight back quite well.
Who's in charge of Iran at the moment?
Well, that's really a good question. I think everyone and no one, because Iran has quite a horizontal power structure. Yeah. And while the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been assassinated by the United States and around 48 other leaders, according to Donald Trump, or 48 leaders in total. I'm not sure how the calculations are made, but that's the boast or the claim by Donald Trump. They're gone, but there are plenty of other leaders and institutions, I think we should say, that can take their place. And this is one of the legacies, really, of the supreme leader, the late supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He set up quite a diffuse power structure. It was much less personalized than under Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the revolutionary leader who died in 1989. So over the past almost 40 years, he had set up really quite a diffuse power structure, and you have all kinds of bodies. There's an elected body of clerics called the Assembly of Experts, 88 experts. They will elect the next supreme leader, but there's also the all-powerful Guardian Council. 6 of those figures, there's 12 in total, 6 are chosen by the supreme leader, 6 nominated by the judiciary and approved by parliament. So there's quite a diffuse power structure. There's several other major institutions. There's the presidency, and of course the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as well, which is the IRGC, often referred to by that acronym. And this is like a parallel army. Iran has a conventional army, but it also has this IRGC, kind of like special forces, but much more extensive in scope. And they are very, very powerful, and they are likely to have a leading hand in, I think, ruling Iran for the time being and in choosing ultimately the next supreme leader.
Is there a danger that in assassinating the Ayatollah at the head of that horizontal power structure that you were talking about there, the US have kind of removed a focal point for negotiations, and they're now in a situation where that power has been decentralized, it's been spread across a whole lot of people, and in a way is more difficult to control and negotiate with? Because, obviously the world wants an off-ramp here, but it's kind of who's going to make the call as to whether you roll off the off-ramp.
Indeed, look, the United States and Donald Trump have opened a Pandora's box here. They've ignited a powder keg, and we're witnessing the impact of that now. And we don't have that supreme leader. He's gone. So have many of his colleagues. And Iran has shut down their internet again, largely. That means communication is difficult internally as well. So we could be having a whole lot of parallel power structures now in place, making their own decisions. And that's perhaps even more terrifying, I think, if you think about it from an outside perspective. Perhaps there is no coordination in the retaliation that we're seeing against the Gulf states. Perhaps you've got a whole lot of different leaders effectively conducting these strikes against the Gulf and deciding independently that they are going to avenge the supreme leader's death. And there's been a fatwa issued calling them on to do so, in fact. So that they are now, I think, unleashing their full fire and fury, to use the title of a book issued about Donald Trump's first term. But I think Iran really is unleashing that fire and fury right now against the United States, against Israel, also against the Gulf states that are US allies, that host US military bases and facilities. And the Gulf states are absolutely reeling, and they're quite shocked by what is happening to them. Well, yeah. I think it really is causing a huge amount of disquiet in the Gulf, to put it mildly.
I'd like to talk a bit about that, because your PhD looked at our New Zealand's relationship with the 6 Gulf states, which you mentioned before. Those Gulf states are absolutely crucial, you would think, to how this all unfolds. What will they be talking about behind closed doors at the moment?
Well, I think there's a lot of shock, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of disappointment in the Gulf at the moment, because they had spoken out for Iran. They had, despite their differences with Iran over the years, they had spoken out quite firmly to the United States against a military campaign against Iran. Of course, Oman, the Gulf state of Oman, had been the broker of negotiations that were ongoing as recently as last Thursday in Geneva between the United States and Iran. There's just, I think, a sense that this is not real. And when it comes to the Gulf state, the hotels that have been struck in Dubai, the airports, not just Dubai airport, but Abu Dhabi airport, Kuwait airport, Bahrain airport, the Jebel Ali port in Dubai is one of the 10 biggest ports in the world, container ports in the world, has been struck. I mean, Dubai airport, by some measures, is the biggest airport in the world. And they've all been struck. It's not just US military facilities that have come under attack. So there's a lot of anger towards Iran. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, has closed their embassy in Tehran today, has withdrawn their ambassador. They have summoned the Iranian ambassador in Abu Dhabi, in their capital, and have told them about their extreme anger, I think, at what has transpired. But they are now largely powerless as to what is happening, because all of this has spiraled out of control, and I'm not sure anyone or any country truly controls what is going on now. This is what is the inevitable result of Donald Trump's actions and Benjamin Netanyahu's actions. They have unleashed forces now that they cannot control. Donald Trump is talking about this war taking 4 weeks. Well, that's his viewpoint on the matter. Iran may have a different one.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've heard Donald Trump urging Iranians to rise up, to take control of their own destiny, to form a government. But I guess, rise up against whom? Who's taking control, and from whom?
Yeah. And there's an absolute power vacuum in Iran. There is no opposition leader. dictator who's waiting there in Iran to take power. Of course, we have the Crown Prince.
Well, he hasn't lived there in 50 years, has he?
Indeed, we have the self-appointed Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who left Iran in 1978, and he's popular particularly amongst some in the diaspora, Iranian exiles effectively, who like the idea of the Shah's regime coming back. But let's be clear here, the Shah's regime that was deposed by the Islamic Revolution in 1979 was a despotic regime in itself, and had all kinds of brutality and secret police and so forth. I don't think that the Shah is really a viable option, and I don't think Reza Pahlavi's the support for Reza Pahlavi is really as widespread as many of the exiles in the diaspora will have you believe. I think the truth is there will be a power vacuum here, and that probably means a civil war, a brutal civil war in Iran, in much the way that we had a brutal civil war unfold in Iraq back after the US invasion in 2003. Back then it was a successful invasion initially from the US perspective. Remember George W. Bush on the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished barrier behind him and celebrating the success of toppling Saddam Hussein's regime. But then remember what came after that. Remember the chaos and destruction of that brutal civil war that raged for years in Iraq. We could well see something similar unfold in Iran. And Iran is a lot bigger than Iraq, 6 times bigger by area. So has a population of 92 million people. It is a very much a larger country than Iraq even is. So look, the potential for all kinds of chaos and instability is obvious, I think.
If we look at New Zealand's response to this, the Prime Minister asked about this a lot today, as you'd imagine, fairly non-committal on the morality of it and also the legality, going on Morning Report to say New Zealand's position was basically Australia's, which, if I reduce it down, kind of that the Iranian regime is brutal and dictatorial and this move was justified. But I heard Robert Patman this morning on Morning Report as well saying, countries like us, even countries like Australia, we depend on the rule-based order, and if the biggest countries which historically have upheld those rules are now disregarding them, that is not good news for us in the mid to long term, and we don't want to be perceived as being servile to the US in this situation.
Indeed, look, I watched the post-cabinet press conference by the Prime Minister, by Christopher Luxon, and look, I'm not trying to be partisan here. I think even if supporters of Christopher Luxon watched that, they would call that a train wreck, because that's what it was. He was at 6s and 7s, he was mixing up his countries, he wanted to have it all ways here. He wanted both New Zealand's position to be different and independent, but also virtually the same as Australia's. I think he doesn't really understand the situation that we're in. And
well, he probably wants a bit more clarity, right? He probably wants things to firm up a little bit.
Look, I think the situation is pretty clear what's happened. I think we know what has happened now, and I don't think some of these explanations that he's coming out with are particularly credible. I think the truth is he is really not wanting to come out and criticize the United States because New Zealand wants to have a good relationship with the Donald Trump administration. And I think he should just come out right and say that, if that's the reason, and that New Zealand actually supports this because we support the United States. But if that is the case, New Zealand is contributing to the breakdown of the international rules-based order, because New Zealand is accepting that it is okay to wage a war of aggression. This was not self-defense here by the United States and Israel. Iran was, after all, at the negotiating table in Geneva on Thursday. There were more talks scheduled for Vienna today. Those have now not happened, of course, because Donald Trump has gone over the top and Benjamin Netanyahu have gone over the top and have decided to start a unilateral war of aggression against Iran. I think that's the situation here. And I think Christopher Luxon, the Prime Minister, probably does himself a disservice by trying to dance around the head of a pin here on all of these issues. And perhaps he should just come outright and say, look, we support the United States because New Zealand is a close friend and partner of the United States. That would be a more honest answer than some of the answers he tried to give today. And I think he even realized himself that what he was saying didn't really make a lot of sense. But it's the line that he's having to tread, I guess. That's the position that the government has taken, where they've condemned Iran's retaliatory strike, but have not condemned the United States and Israel's actions, and are providing effectively implicit support for the US-Israeli campaign, even if they're not saying so perhaps in so many words. They're not using the word support, they're using the word acknowledge and saying that Iran has been a threat to international peace and security. It adds up to really support. But there are others in the West, such as the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, Norway as well, that are parting company, I think, from the likes of New Zealand, Australia, the United Kingdom, France, Germany here on this, and they are coming out and being a bit clearer on all of this and saying that actually this is wrong, that this is a war of aggression. And I think if this continues to spiral out of control, we could see more divergence amongst Western countries in their views of this war.
Well, it will be fascinating to see how this continues to unfold. Geoffrey Miller, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it, Geoff.
Thanks, Emile.
That is geopolitical analyst there, Dr. Geoffrey Miller.